Every night, millions of us perform the exact same ritual. We push a piece of metal into a slot, hear a satisfying click, and assume the world is now divided into two parts, the dangerous outside and the safe inside. This is the psychology of the sanctuary. Our minds require this invisible border to function. We need to believe that as long as the perimeter is intact, the chaos of the street or the woods cannot reach us. We see this reliance on the boundary everywhere. It's what allows a skeptic to stay alone in a massive high-tech mansion in the middle of nowhere. It's why we feel secure in a keycard access apartment or a quiet home in the suburbs. But that security is contingent on the lock doing its job. When a threat appears in a room you've already cleared, without ever touching a window or a door, the logic of the sanctuary begins to fail. In these moments, the horror isn't just about the physical danger. It's the sudden, cold realization that the barrier you've spent your life trusting might be a lot more porous than you imagined. Consider the experience of a house sitter in a rural estate. The home is a Salon fortress of modern technology, equipped with sensors and alarms designed to make a secret entry nearly impossible. Yet at 3:21 in the morning, the owner's golden retriever reacts with a sudden, vicious snarl, not at the front door, but at the door leading to the basement. The dog is signaling that something is already inside, localized entirely within the footprint of the house. Investigating the basement reveals no intruder, but the environment itself has changed. The air is unnaturally freezing, and a foul, heavy odor hangs in the room. There is no forced entry, no broken glass, and no explanation for why the space feels so suddenly corrupted. The next night, the dog refuses to even step over the threshold. The snarl returns, and despite the house being empty, heavy bar stools and framed family photos are found knocked to the floor. A physical event occurred in a sealed, monitored room, and the security system never made a sound. It is a specific kind of dread. You don't need a broken window when the thing you're afraid of has found a way to manifest behind a door you've already locked. In other cases, the boundary isn't bypassed, it's actively tested. In a secure apartment complex, a tenant lives on the ground floor. To even reach her front door, a visitor would need a programmed keycard to pass the main entrance. The intrusions start at her bedroom window, which faces a private courtyard. Late at night, she hears faint giggling and rhythmic tapping against the glass, just inches from where she sleeps. When the building manager checks the internal security footage, they find something that defies the building's security logic. At 2 in the morning, two small hooded figures are seen standing motionless, inches from her apartment door. They stay there for 10 minutes before walking away and vanishing from every other camera in the building. A week later, the figures return to the door. This time, the doorknob rattles violently, as small, soft voices mimic a desperate plea. "Mom, we're home. Please let us in." They throw themselves against the wood, trying the lock repeatedly before disappearing back into the hallway. There's something uniquely predatory about an entity that doesn't just try to break in, but mimics the sounds of a family to trick you into opening the door yourself. Sometimes the failure of the sanctuary is far more grounded, but no less absolute. A retail worker starts finding neon pink sticky notes on their car handle after work. At first, they are just friendly messages, an anonymous attempt at flirtation. But when the worker stops responding, the tone shifts. The notes become demanding and eventually turn into a direct threat. "I know where you live." One night, the worker wakes up to the sound of shuffling feet and movement in the hallway outside their bedroom. They search the house with a baseball bat, checking every lock and every window. Everything is secure, but the feeling of being watched remains. The proof of a total perimeter failure appears the next morning. Stuck to the refrigerator, deep inside the locked house, is a pink note that simply says, "You can't keep me away." This is the ultimate failure of the physical barrier. Despite every precaution, a human predator had acquired a key and moved through the house at will. The lock on the front door was no longer a defense. It was just a piece of metal that a stranger already knew how to turn. In all three of these accounts, the unifying factor isn't what was taken or who was hurt. Each person walked away without a scratch, yet not one of them ever looked at their home the same way again. The damage is measured in the long term. The house sitter still loses sleep over a scent in a basement he doesn't even live in. The tenant moved away but is still haunted by the memory of those voices at her door. And the retail worker, despite changing every lock, still fears the dark corners of a room they should own. The sense of security we get from a deadbolt is fragile. Once you have seen a threat ignore that piece of metal, the act of turning the key feels less like a defense and more like a hope. It doesn't matter if the intruder is a ghost, a hooded figure, or a stalker with a key. The result is the same. The privacy of your private life has been erased, and the outside world has claimed your interior space. We continue to lock our doors because we have to, but as these stories show, the threshold is never as solid as we want it to be, and once it's been crossed, you can never truly be sure if you're alone.